Greetings, my fellow freeload sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful swampy mangroves of South Florida, and today's date is Thursday, March 30th, 2017. Yes, I noticed I've been inactive for a week, and I apologize. I'm a working guy. I'm not one of those individuals that do things 24/7. So, yeah, like I said, it just happens. But thanks for everyone's patience. And this is reading some of your comments too. I like that also. Yeah, that's yesterday I know I was looking up thing on Noam Chomsky make this claim that a false flag, predicting a false flag that President Trump is gonna be responsible for to make himself more popular and all that good stuff. And I have to agree. I got this from Dan Dix and from Press for Truth the first time when I examined it. And is Noam Chomsky the gatekeeper? He did brought up a thing on Dan Ruskin when he questioned Chomsky about Building 7. Of course, Noam Chomsky thinks the whole Building 7 so forth is just a wet dream in his eyes. But what can you expect? A man's a possible bend over Bob to the New World Order. It's possible. Was nothing new whatsoever. So, like I told you, and I have to agree with Mr. Dix when he talked about economic crash, and a few others addressed it as well. They're gonna try to blame it all on President Trump. Like him or not, you gotta be really observant on this because I'm not too crazy about some of his actions myself, and I'm honest. I'll be very fair. However, if things like that, something like that occurs, and you're going to jump on that bandwagon, then you've been a victim of the Jim Jones syndrome. So, like I always said in the past on my episodes, if you're critical, have merit. And don't be a parrot. So, enough of that. And, of course, CNN still climaxing on the whole Russian thing about Russia blame. They blame the Russians for the fall of the elections and all that. I'm like, give me a break. Same old song and dance. It's like this only thing they're doing is getting people to manifest, spinning its wheels. Okay, like a hamster in the wheelbarrow, in the cage, just like that. Spinning its wheels. Please, folks, don't fall for it. It's plainly damn ludicrous. And there's no backing by any means. That's why I just laugh. I really do. But, listening to WSOU and John Joseph Bloodclot, the Christian Irish lad from Lower East Side, was speaking about his album, Bloodclot. And it's good. It's like, some punk stuff, punk roots and so forth. It's not like Cro-Mags at your Coral. However, the tracks they played on there was real appreciative, and I would check it out. When you have a chance, go buy the album that comes out. Hopefully, I think it's July. I'm not so sure. It's supposed to be around May or July, something like that. It's supposed to be like late spring, early summer, and they're supposed to be on tour with Naked Aggression. So if you haven't seen Bloodclot, check him out. The guy's gonna be 54 years old. He still jumps around like he's in his 20s or 30s. Real spirited, very down to earth. And, of course, in his interview, talking about his mistakes he made, even his book, Evolution of Cro-Magnon, second edition is coming out. Really good autobiography. I want to attempt to purchase the latest edition on his upcoming newest chapters. I always pay homage to the guy. He's a good, awesome individual. I love him to death. And him and I, we just BS, mingle, just spread the love too. So, I'm not gonna be digressing this much. So let's get to some of the stuff I just popped up on my Twitter account. And what the hell? We'll just do this one thing right here. It's from the Daily Sheeple. Originally came out from Anti-Media. Came out today. Opioid death plummeting in states within legal weed. This is by James Holbrooks. As Attorney General Jeff Sessions continues to lament what what he views as a blight on society. A new study is showing that states with medical marijuana programs are seeing drastic reductions in opioid-related hospitalizations and overdoses. From a Reuters article published Tuesday, in states that legalize medical marijuana, U.S. hospitals failed to see a predicted influx of pot smokers, but in an unexpected twist. They treated far fewer opioid users, a new study shows. Hospitalization rates for opiate painkillers, dependence, and abuse dropped on average 23% in states after marijuana is permitted for medical purposes. The analysts found hospitalization rates for opiate overdoses dropped 13% on average. And that's a pretty damn good start, according to this article. The study published in Drug and Alcohol Dependence was authored by Yuan Shi, a public health professor at the University of California, San Diego. According to Reuters, Shi's studies is the fifth in recent years to demonstrate declines in opioid dependence in states where medical weed is legal. Intrigued by the data, Dr. Esther Chu, an emergency medicine professor at Oregon Health and Science University, spoke to Reuters via email. It is becoming increasingly clear that battling the opioid epidemic will require a multi-pronged approach and a good deal of creativity. Chu was not involved in the study, said. Could increased liberalization of marijuana be part of the solution? It seems plausible. One in 2014 study showed opioid deaths drop an average of 25% in states where medical marijuana is permitted, and data released just a month ago suggests that given the choice, many patients prefer weed over opioids as a painkiller. The news of this latest study comes as Congressional Committee announced it is opening an investigation into the pharmaceutical manufacturers of the nation's 5 top-selling opioid products. According to a statement released by the Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, the investigation will be headed by Senator Claire McCaskill, Democrat, will explore whether pharmaceutical corporations have contributed to opioid overutilization and overprescription. Ooh, interesting stuff here, huh? The investigation will purportedly be a wide-ranging one and will also include the marketing side of the industry. A recent report from the Associated Press, for instance, found makers of opioid killers outspend the gun lobby on campaign contributions and lobbying a ratio of 8-1. Wow, man, 8-1. I could say a crap load of money, my friends. How come I don't see the Brady Bunch and all those people going after the big pharma? Something to think about, right? But they want to go after the gun lobby groups, but not big pharma. Okay, so I'm going to continue on here. All of this didn't happen overnight, McCaskill said, of the opioid epidemic sweeping the United States. It happened one prescription and marketing program at a time. However, neither the mounting evidence of medicinal uses for marijuana nor calls from those within Trump's own government to look into true cases of the opioid epidemic have seemed to sway the president's top cop. Just last week, Jeff Sessions doubled down on his stance that marijuana is nothing short of a danger to society. Well, Attorney General Sessions, will you please stop relying and watching that movie Reefer Madness to get your sources, okay? I am astonished to hear people suggest that we can solve our heroin crisis by legalizing marijuana, he said, so people can trade on life-reckoning dependence for another. Twilight Zorro world, huh? Well, this is why I know in the past I have addressed these areas on the articles that talked about the whole thing on medical marijuana or recreational marijuana state law that the federal government is going to encroach on their territory. Well, I did talk about Prince versus the United States, correct? Absolutely. On the whole thing on the Brady law, which the states the federal government tried to encroach on states' jurisdictions to. You got to force this law with their own monies, or like it or not. It's the same thing what he was addressing. and people are wigging out. Don't panic, my friends. So I want to be courteous enough to get file.cfm, which is a Law Mercer education group, Law Mercer or Mercer Law, right? The Mercer Law, yeah, Mercer Law Review, and it's 14 pages long. It talks about the principles of the United States, 10th Amendment limitations on federal access to mechanisms of state government. Even though it's about the Brady Act in 1993, but when you really read this, it's anything that the federal government can't do. So I want to add this to the memo, to my footnotes. And please, folks, read this thoroughly. It is an amazing case. Okay? Which even the attorney, who was a member of the National Rifle Association, NRA, brought it to the sheriff's attention. They go, nope, this is not the 2nd, but the 10th. So folks, you got to really just read and... hey, my dog's trying to be too friendly with some patrons here. All right. Yeah. Right. Yeah, just talking to a patron here, so it's pretty cool. So yeah, definitely I'm gonna bring this case. I'm gonna definitely bring this add this case to the whole to the scenario. So yeah, folks, yeah, definitely check it out, man. It's really great, and so now you got intellectual ammunition because you know why? Here's the thing: Jeff Sessions is pro-gun. If you throw this back at him, I guarantee you one thing: more people throw it back at him, they're gonna say, Attorney General Sessions, the people are right. Read this. So, no complaints. Take action. Remember, it speaks louder than words. Correct? Absolutely. This one is interesting. Came out yesterday by Isabel Z. And it says here, doctor finds RFID chip embedded in sex trafficking victim. Ooh, interesting. So let's just read here. When an emergency room doctor received a tragic note reading, I have a tracker in me. One day last fall, he probably felt like he was in a spy movie, while psychiatric patients were not an uncommon sight in the hospital. The situation was different. The woman appeared lucid and had an incision. So the doctors gave her an x-ray. What they saw rendered them speechless. A tiny metallic object, a little bigger than a grain of rice, had embedded on her side. Yeah, I don't know. I guess where they got some RFID chip from? Boca Raton? Applied Digital? Allegedly. The woman, who was in her 20s, were being forced by her boyfriend to have sex with other people for money, which she then had to run over him. Then she had to hand over to him. The doctor likened the chip, which was contained within the tiny glass capsule, to the tagging that is frequent seen in animals, like she was somebody's pet that they owned, said Dr. A, whose identity and hospital are being omitted for his own protection. Human trafficking involves a person taking advantage of someone else for profit, whether it's an employer holding a person's passport, someone being locked inside a room, or having an RFID chip implanted into their skin. It can be found in industries like domestic service and manufacturing, as well as prostitution. Most of us don't have any first-hand experience with human trafficking. It's hard to wrap our minds around the fact that something like this can actually happen in America in the year 2017. But it's far more common than you think. Earlier this year, around 500 suspects were arrested when Los Angeles police broke up a sizable human trafficking ring. UNICEF estimates that 21 million people are victims of human trafficking globally, including 5.5 million children, generating profits of around $32 billion for criminals who exploit these people. Most victims are women who are exploited for sex work. In the U.S., they are believed to be around 1.5 million of human trafficking. While human trafficking is typically the purview of law enforcement, healthcare workers are starting to take notice. One report indicates that up to 88% of victims of sex trafficking wind up in a clinic or emergency room at some point, while they are being held. Unfortunately, just a quarter of providers believe that human trafficking affects their patients. Doctors who had brushed with this type of problem are now trying to raise awareness among their colleagues. Dr. Wendy Macias, emergency room doctor at Boston's University General Hospital, is one such advocate. She points out that healthcare providers have a type of privileged access to the lives of these people that law enforcement and other parties don't normally get, with human traffickers often moving their victims around from city to city, even state to state, to avoid getting caught. She wants doctors to be able to recognize victims so they can take advantage of the narrow window of access they get to these people and help them. This is particularly pressing now that criminals are now planning victims with RFID chips to keep track of them. Just 2 years ago, Natural News told you that RFID implants in humans were coming sooner than expected. At a 2012 TEDx talk, British researcher Mark Gaston said that such implants have a potential to change the very essence is what to be human. While most people talk about the RFID in terms of how it can help society, the truth is that there is a lot of also potential for harm. The same technology that can tell a sales associate in the clothing store if the last pair of jeans in your size are sitting in the back of a dressing room floor can also help criminals keep track of whereabouts of their victims so their living hell can continue. In fact, if you probably already have RFID chips in passports, credit cards, and driver's licenses, then clever thieves with RFID readers could be accessing and stealing your personal data from several feet away without you even realizing if you're not using RFID blocking sleeves. While there is no denying technology is improving our lives in many ways, it's important to keep in mind that there is also a very big downside. Of course, so really, really disheartening, just to hear about that. And one thing I tell folks, even with sex trafficking, this is human trafficking is really disturbing. And I know they've been having big raids around the world. Even Donald Trump did sign the executive order on that to implement it. But how far is going to allow? How deep the rabbit hole can go? We don't know. But it can lead. A lot of it can be cancerous as well. So it's one thing about these things is you have to really be vigilant in these gadgets. So it can enhance or enslave humanity. And that's why traffickers is enslaving humanity. Yeah, so I'm going to keep on going here. It's from Real Change, came out a couple of days ago. And it says here, former Ohio mayor facing life in prison for rape of a 4-year-old. This is by Aaron Castle. Richard Keenan, the former mayor of Hubbard, Ohio, is facing life behind bars for raping a 4-year-old girl over a 3-year period. Keenan says the 4-year-old girl was a willing participant in his sexual act. He was the mayor of Hubbard, Ohio from 2010 to 2011. Keenan was indicted last September on 8 counts of gross sexual imposition, 4 counts of attempted rape, and 8 counts of rape. He pled guilty to 20 counts of sex crimes, including 8 counts of rape. WYTV reported Keenan reportedly agreed to a life sentence with the eligibility of parole after 10 years. According to court documents, the abuse began as early as September 2013 when the victim was just a mere 4-year-old and continued for 3 years until the victim was 7 years old, ending in September of 2015. He was arrested on August 18th and was released on bond the very same day, according to jail records. Despite multiple attempts from several media outlets, J. Gerald Ingram, the former Ohio mayor's attorney, has refused to comment on the crimes the client is accused of. Keenan once described himself as a man of faith, according to Washington Post. Keenan made a confession to his wife, a pastor and a social worker, and his brother and sister-in-law, according to filing the assistant prosecutor, Gabriel Wildman, Vindy.com reported. When Keenan's wife confronted him about the allegations, he responded, "I did it." It gives the victim some closure. Obviously, keep this young child from having to testify, and I think it's a good result given all the facts circumstances, said Wildman. Keenan's bond was revoked until his sentencing, with Assistant Prosecutor Wildman stating that Keenan was a risk to himself and others. Obviously, we feel it's inappropriate that he's out. We feel that given the nature of the crimes and what he pleads guilty to, the public has an interest in him being incarcerated, said Trumbull County Assistant Prosecutor Gabe Wildman. Judge Peter Contos agreed, revoking Keenan's previous $75,000 bond. Keenan is now being held in Trumbull County Jail until his sentencing. He will undergo a pre-sentencing investigation, which will take a few weeks. It is unclear how the former Ohio mayor came into contact with a child. This is absolutely disturbing. Doesn't matter, regardless if you have children or not. An innocent person being a victim of this, I condemn with a passion. Keenan, according to this, Keenan has repented or take responsibility for his actions. May have a conscience, I don't know. Can't make any judgment. But according to this, in the articles, he's not being defensive either. Just wondering if he ever been in that situation when he was a young man and no one knows about it. I don't know. But if he goes in the public, if he's in public, serving time, things may happen to him. There's folks out there admit they made a lot of mistakes. They don't accept these individuals. But one thing I know, maybe some healing for the child, but still scarred. So, I find it very disturbing as usual on these cases. But I think something happens to him, he met his fate. But I'm not wishing by any means. His actions are condemning, unacceptable, or other words, censured. Enough of that. I'm going to continue on here. This came out today by Justin Gardner, 3thoughtproject.com. Gang of thieves. DEA stole $3.2 billion in cash from innocent people in only a decade. A bombshell report from the Inspector General of the Department of Justice has exposed the Drug Enforcement Administration for the colossal thieves that they are. According to the report, DEA seized more than $4 billion in cash from people since 2007, but $3.2 billion of the seizures were never connected to any criminal charges. The figure does not even include seizures of cars and electronics. This thievery is possible through the insidious practice of civil asset forfeiture, or CAF, where law enforcement can seize cash and property on the mere suspicion of being involved in criminal activity. Assume. Kind of, sort of. Originally developed in the 1980s to go after organized crime, CAF has mushroomed to a source of revenue for cops across the country, from local, state to federal, and what becomes known as policing for profit. When innocent person's cash is stolen by DEA, that person must petition to get it back, meaning the burden of proof and the burden of time and expense is on the unlucky victim who never did anything wrong in the first place. In fact, forfeiture proceedings start from the presumption of guilt. So no due process. All right? That's how these scumbags think. Continue on. It is a clever scheme, and DEA knows it. The IG found that petitions were filed in only 20% of DEA cash seizures. As Reason Magazine points out, the IG reports highlights just how arbitrary these seizures can be. We found that different task force officers made different decisions in similar situations when deciding whether to seize all the cash discovered, the Inspector General wrote. These differences demonstrate how seizure decisions can appear arbitrary, which should be concern for the department, both because of potentially improper conduct and because even the appearance of arbitrary decision-making and asset seizure can fuel public perception that law enforcement is not using this authority legitimately, thereby undermining public confidence in law enforcement. The case of a man traveling at an airport with $27,000 is a prime example of how DEA can just take cash on a whim without even bothering to pretend it has to do with criminal activity. When the task force officer explained that the U.S. currency in his bag was going to be seized pending further investigation, the passenger asked whether he could keep some of the currency to travel home. The passenger asserted that all currency in the bag was his, and task officers police allowed him to retain $1,000. How sweet is that? This seizure resulted in a administrative forfeiture of $27,000 to the U.S. government, and the DEA explained to the OIG that, other than the events surrounding the seizure, there is no subsequent investigative activity or additional law enforcement benefit. The Reason magazine sums it up perfectly. If the DEA task force agents thought that man's cash was connected to drug activity, why allow him to keep some of it? If they weren't sure, why they take it in the first place? The answer, of course, there is no logical or legal rationale for this sequence of events. So, in other words, it's kinda, sort of, it's the only way, kinda, sort of, will get them through the day. All right? That's why. Indeed, most of the DEA's cash seizures don't relate to any criminal investigation, and 82% of the cases reviewed by the IG were settled without any judicial review. The DEA focuses on airports, train stations, and bus terminals, relying on travel records, and they host confidential informants to target people they believe will have lots of cash. So if you're a bend-over Bob to the state, you can be qualified. DEA gives itself wide latitude to pin you as a suspect for detainment and search. Woe to those traveling to or from a known source city. For drug trafficking, purchasing a ticket within 24 hours of travel, purchasing a ticket for a long flight with an immediate return, purchasing a one-way ticket, and traveling without checked luggage. Oh my goodness, he's a suspect. The IG concludes that DEA is posing great risk to civil liberties by continuing the practice highlighted in its report. When seizures and administrative forfeitures do not ultimately advance an investigation or prosecution, law enforcement creates the appearance and a risky reality that is more interesting in seizing and forfeiting cash than advancing an investigation or prosecution. The IG states that risks to civil liberties are particularly significant when seizures that do not advance or relate to an investigation are conducted without court-issued seizure warrant. The presence of illicit narcotics or subsequent judicial involvement prior to administrative forfeiture. The threat to civil liberties posed by CAF is being recognized more and more as states continue to abolish the practice by requiring a criminal conviction before cash and assets can be seized. But the federal government is the primary reason why CAF still runs rampant through the infamously named Equitable Sharing Fund, where the stolen loot amounting of $28 billion over the last decade is shared by federal and state drug task forces. These fines are fundamentally undercut law enforcement's claim that civil forfeiture is a vital crime-fighting tool. Americans are already outraged at the Justice Department's aggressive use of civil forfeiture, which has mushroomed into a multi-billion-dollar program in the last decade. This report only further confirms we have been saying all along forfeiture laws create perverse financial incentives to seize property without judicial oversight and violate due process. This report is one more illustration that only solution to resolve these issues and to use the civil forfeiture once and for all. Institute for Justice. Yes, this is another sham that is being exposed, is being stripped naked. And that's why I tell folks, hey, they won't like if we steal the van from a DEA and do a raid, just go hot wire and take off. You guys are thieves, but they do it. They do it. They're so special. See, that's why I don't really feel sorry for these people who are in these particular organizations that into the forfeiture seizure program, okay? Because they can't get a real job. Can't get it. They don't have skills. Okay, I'll be a narc. I'll be a bend over Bob to the state. I will take people's money without due process. They should wear a I love Mao Tse-tung or Benito Mussolini button. Go, I'm a real man love police state. Go ask a DEA agent. Would they like that? Absolutely not. Got some dangerous folks out there, my friends. But one thing I tell people, hey, a lot of states are doing this civil forfeiture laws. That hey, we're not going to support it. We don't want you in here. We want convictions. We want merit. This is why the drug war is nothing more than a monumental lie. Needs to be abolished. And these bastards, I'm just doing my job. Throw them in prison with due process. Let's see how tough they are when they serve when they go in the general public. Because I'll tell you one thing, they'll be the ones scared shitless too. And excuse my language. But one thing for sure, people are waking up on this area, and it will backfire on them furthermore. And you know what? It'll be everyone, but it'll be them, no one else. So, enough of that. Finally, came from Market Watch, came out yesterday. It says here, your browser history can now be sold to advertisers without your consent. House approves repeal protection put in place by the Obama administration. It is by Carrie Paul. Corporate tracking on your online activity is about to get more invasive. Internet service providers will soon be automatically able to collect information on browsing habits, health information, and other sensitive data from misusers after the House of Representatives on Tuesday approved a repeal of protections put in place under the Obama administration. On a 215-205 vote, largely along party lines, the House voted undo these Obama-era broadband privacy rules that govern the behavior of Internet service providers. The rules passed by the Federal Communications Commission has required users to explicitly opt into data collection by Internet providers. Without these protections, companies like Comcast, Time Warner, and Verizon will be allowed to collect user browsing history, alter search results, and monitor other online activities to sell data to advertisers. None of these companies responded to requests for commitment. Approval of the bill came despite a backlash from privacy advocates and pressure from tech-savvy voters. The bill passed the Senate last week, and Donald Trump is expected to sign it. Consumers are already tracked online by advertisers, but repeal these protections will take surveillance to a more intimate level. Internet providers have been campaigning to remove these regulations for more than a year. Without them, companies will be able to pre-install software consumer phones that recover every URL visit. So put some porn in there so just to drive them crazy, right? Insert advertisements across the web based on traffic and re-engineering search results to direct the users to sponsor pages rather than traditional searches. The decades-old legal right to communication privacy will be weakened as a gift to cable and telephone industry. Ernesto Falcon, investigative counsel at the Digital Privacy Advocacy Organization, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, told Market Watch. These companies will begin monetizing your personal information by building profiles of your online activity and will no longer seek your permission to do so. Many ISPs already participate in some of the practices the FCC law is meant to prevent. It hasn't gone into effect yet. According to Ad Age, some telecommunications companies have joined with data firms to sell information about users' operations, including browsing and shopping history, demographics, information, and location. FCC were meant to make this kind of monitoring only allowed an opt-in basis. The repeal comes despite growing awareness about data collection and tracking, according to Michael Kaiser, chief executive of the National Cybersecurity Alliance, a public-private partnership for online privacy and security. Some 93% of U.S. Internet users worry about their online privacy, and 89% say they avoid companies that don't protect their privacy. A 2016 survey conducted found. However, only 31% understand how companies share their personal information. While it's really important that consumers have tools available to protect their personal information and their own online presence, Kaiser said. The more companies clarify and make already available to consumers information about how personal information is handled, the better they will serve consumers' best interests. Consumers can still circumvent surveillance by using virtual private network or VPN. The total loops user traffic through a private encrypted network rather than sending it directly to servers of your internet company, obscuring your browsing habits from the service providers. It's notoriously difficult to rank the best VPN service, but freedom and private internet access PIA are often regarded as solid choices according to security experts and cost a few dollars more. There's links to that if you want to check it out. However, Falcon noted many consumers lack the technical sophistication to use a VPN, while more than 25% of people around the globe use VPNs. Only 60% of Americans have used one. It's still largely considered a niche tool outside to those use them to connect to their office virtual desktop. Some have noted the FCC rules were inadequate to address the issue of online privacy. Writing the MIT Technology Review, editors Jamie Condilf and Mike LaCroix noted that repeal these protections could lead to a more consistent solution to the problem in the future. The FCC's new privacy rules would have been dramatic to be sure, but they would have addressed one piece of the problem, leaving companies like Facebook and Google free to continue doing much of the same thing. They said, the Internet and Television Association, a trade association for the U.S. broadband and paid television industries, welcomed the decision to roll back Obama-era FCC rules so that it remains committed to offering services that protect the privacy and security of the personal information of consumers. You can read the statement in there. Yeah, it's, FCC has its pros and cons and all, don't get me wrong. And one thing I tell folks this, yeah, it is disturbing, but one thing I could say is, I say, hey, you know what I say? Let's start going back shopping locally, use cash, and all that good stuff. So that would be my best bet. Okay, my best recommendation, and try not to and just go word of mouth and so forth instead of relying on the internet for everything. It always has its pros and cons, correct? Absolutely. So I'm just want to see here. Okay, it's pretty cool stuff. I like that a lot. But it's everything's like I said, my friends. It's nothing new at all. So shop wisely. Don't run amok. As they use cash to credit, drive them crazy. It's a good countering thing, right? All right. But that is all for now. I'd like to thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, or you want to send me something that's interesting, it would be great. Whatever you do, please send your comments or correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, Scene.life, or Minds.com. In addition, you can get me at LokiLuck3, which is Look the number 3 at gmail.com. Or if you're those encrypted ones, you can get me on LokiLuck03 at protonmail.com. All right, my friends. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.